Welcome back to What the Hell podcast. I'm Paul. The Good Shepherd episode ended up having just so much that needed to be covered that we didn't have time to talk about everything that we needed to. Today, there are three main points that I'd like to touch on. Number one, if you're watching this right now, smash on that like button. And if you haven't yet, make sure and subscribe to the channel. Every time you do that, YouTube puts What the Hell in front of a larger audience. And there are a lot of people all over out there asking what the hell. They need truth, and we need to get it to them. And I need your help to do that. Your role is huge, but what I ask of you is very little. Just click those buttons. I'll make you a deal. You click a button, I'll do all this, God will take care of the rest. Deal? Sounds like a good deal. Point number two, the gate. You may have noticed last episode was titled The Good Shepherd and the Gate. We covered the Good Shepherd at length in great detail. However, we didn't get a chance to talk about the gate. Point number three, I left you guys hanging. I left you with a cliffhanger. First things first, we are going to look at the most important Good Shepherd passage of all. I purposely saved this for last. Now knowing all the things that we know and all the things that we need to know from the Hebrew Bible, Jesus is going to take all of that stuff. He's going to take all the stuff that he already expects us to know, and he's going to put it all together in beautiful fashion, and he uses it to tell us who he is. I'm sure a lot of you have read or at least heard these words at some point in your past, but now they are going to take on a whole new life, a whole new meaning and significance, speaking to you in a way that you've never realized. And this is really exciting. I am stoked for this. For this, we are going to go to the New Testament, the Gospel according to John. Jesus is speaking, going into great detail, using prophetic metaphors about the Good Shepherd. John 10, 1 through 30. Truly, truly, I say to you, he who does not enter the sheepfold by the gate, but climbs in by another way, that man is a thief and a robber. But he who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the gatekeeper opens. The sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. A stranger they will not follow, but they flee from him, for they do not know the voice of strangers. This figure of speech Jesus used with them, but they did not understand what he was saying to them. So Jesus said again to them, Truly, truly, I say to you, I am the gate of the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the gate. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and will go in and out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. But he who is a hired hand and not a shepherd, who does not own the sheep, sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and flees, and the wolf snatches them and scatters them. He flees because he is a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. And I have other sheep that are not of this fold. I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice. So there will be one flock, one shepherd. For this reason the Father loves me, because I lay down my life that I may take it up again. No one takes from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay it down, and I have authority to take it up again. This charge I have received from my Father. There was again a division among the Jews because of these words. Many of them said, He has a demon, and he's insane. Why listen to him? Others said, These are not the words of one who is oppressed by a demon. Can a demon open the eyes of the blind? At that time, the Feast of Dedication took place at Jerusalem. It was winter, and Jesus was walking in the temple in the colonnade of Solomon. So the Jews gathered around him and said to him, How long will you keep us in suspense? If you are the Christ, just tell us plainly. Jesus answered them, I told you, and you do not believe. The works that I do in my Father's name bear witness about me, but you do not believe because you are not among my sheep. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. I give them eternal life, and they will never perish, and no one will snatch them out of my hand. My Father, who has given them to me, is greater than all, and no one is able to snatch them out of the Father's hand. I and the Father are one. Wow, how epic was that? Can you now see for the first time, realizing that we were blind? I don't know if you share the same feelings and the same reaction I had the first time I experienced this. When it happened, I experienced a whole gamut of emotions, and there was a chain reaction that happened, and it happened really quickly, just all over the place, up to down, left to right. My first reaction was, oh my God, wow, what a revolutionary discovery. In awe and amazement, like I just stumbled into some secret vault finding hidden treasure or something. But that quickly turned into, oh my God, we weren't listening. Jesus was telling us the whole time, but we weren't listening. Now that I've heard it, I've got to go. Now, I've got to get out there and I've got to go do what Jesus did and go tell people. Everyone's got to know this. I felt the burden of duty and motivation. That burning fire immediately got rained on. I mean, just drenched, downpoured on. Then I felt enormous guilt in this overwhelming sadness. I can't imagine what Jesus had felt, because I felt for Jesus. I mean, I really felt for him in a way that I've never even considered. I mean, here's a man, a truly innocent, a truly good man, trying everything he can just to tell people something. When you break it down into its most simplistic form of what Jesus was doing here, that's what it was, to tell people something. He dedicated his entire life, his entire existence to one thing, to tell everyone that he could possibly reach something of the good news of what is to come and who he is, of who is right there in front of them, living amongst them. And none of it was for himself. It was all for them, all for us. And back then, people knew exactly what he was saying. They got it. They understood, but they didn't listen. Literally, the greatest thing that you could ever hear was being told to them, and it fell on deaf ears. Or worse, they heard it, they understood, but they denied and rejected what they were being told, and they rebuked him for it. They mocked him and teased him and made fun of him, and they tried to make him and his life's mission of telling people these things to make him look stupid. Or even worse yet, because of what he was saying, they hated him. They spit on him. They beat him, chained him up, tortured him in the worst ways possible to the point of death. But perhaps worst of all, what could be worse than that? Us. Because Jesus is still at work right now, doing the very same thing that he was back then. He's trying to tell us something. Trying to tell us the good news of what's to come and who he is and who is living here and now. And we even have an advantage over the people back then. They have more of, an excuse, for lack of a better word, than we do. So we have something that they didn't. Because he's not just living here and now amongst us. Through the Holy Spirit, he's living inside every one of us. Why is that worse? Because we don't care. We don't care. If we even hear anything that he's saying at all, we have no clue what's being said to us. We don't know and we don't care. To me, that's worse. That's far worse. At least back then, even if it was in the most terribly wrong of ways, at least they were acting out of passion. Passion for their people, for history, for future, family, for knowledge and meaning and existence and faith and truth and God. They were acting out of passion for God, although be it misplaced. I am certain of this, that in some way that we never could possibly, God understands that. He does. And if there is something that God can't understand, if that's possible, I think it's us. Because we just don't care. They did all that terrible stuff to Jesus because they cared so much. It was just completely misplaced. We just don't care. We don't give a crap. We don't care. We don't care about him. We don't care about the Bible. We don't care about any of it. It's sad. It's sad. And I felt sad for Jesus, and I felt guilty for being a part of that. It's sad and it's gross and it's disgusting. I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want you to be a part of that. I don't want anyone to be a part of that. And for me, that became my motivation and my reason why. That's my why for everything. That's my why for hope, for love, for work, for family. My why for waking up today, for realizing that you are really messed up. And the why for the reason to want to be a little bit better than you were yesterday. Realizing that this world is not a good place. And the why to do what you can to make it just a little bit better. Realizing that nothing is okay. Nothing is okay. But everything's okay. It's gonna be okay. That's the why. And there aren't many of us. The world needs your help. Think about this. I mean, about what we're talking about here. Think about it. Really think about it. And then look around you. What the hell is going on? That's the why. And that's why I'm doing this. And that's why I need your help. God needs your help. Okay, back to what we're doing here. Now that we better understand why the things Jesus said caused so much trouble, because of what he was saying, because of this, he was hated, he was feared, and eventually arrested and put to death, just because of the weight it carried and the controversy surrounding what he was saying. Another beautiful thing that happens, which perhaps is the most beautiful, fascinating aspect of all of this. To me, this is the main thing. This is the culmination. This is the greatest part of all of it, and why I fell in love with all of this. We get to discover in a very natural way just how carefully crafted and deeply rooted and intricately woven the Bible really is. I mean, the Bible is literally the greatest, most genius piece of literary art the world has ever seen. It truly is. It's something that is just so much, and it simply could not exist in the form that it is in today without the direct work from God himself. I don't think that's debatable. If you think it is, then I don't think you have a proper understanding of just the construction of the Bible. I mean, it is insane. The way that it's connected, in the way that it's formed and shaped to get it in the current shape that it's in, it's not possible. Throughout world history, there have been some really smart people, some very talented people, some great artists, and I mean great, but they could not do this. They could not construct the Bible in the way that it is formed today. It's not possible. It is so intricately woven, and there's so many connections. It is impossible without the finger of God touching it. A lot of people try to discredit the Bible for these different aspects. People say that, well, this guy edited it, or these people edited it, or they removed stuff, they added stuff, they did this and that. Well, no, that's not necessarily true. But yes, it's been edited, it's been shaped, it's been formed, it's been molded over and over and over again for thousands of years. But that doesn't take away anything from it. That just adds more and more to it each time. It's the greatest piece of art that's ever existed. And because so many human hands and human minds have been used to mold and shape this, that doesn't discredit it at all. That makes it all the more credible in my eyes, and what makes it so beautiful. Because there is not a human being to have ever existed who could sit down, collect all these different scrolls, put it together, and then shape it and form it into the way that we have it now. It is not possible. It is not possible. It took a long time, and God working through thousands of different people in thousands of different ways to get it in the form that it's in. It is so connected, you have no idea. It is insane. Also, the Bible is not linear, meaning that it's not a normal book like we think of a book. A normal book, it follows a straight line pattern from A to B, right? It has a beginning and an end. And in the middle, it tells us all the information that we need to know about everything in the book, about whatever characters are in the book, whatever storyline is happening, the lows, the highs, the crescendo, the end, right? It tells us everything we need to know. Like, that's the point of the way that we write and read books. And that's how we typically approach the Bible. And that's incorrect. We should not be doing that. The Bible is not meant to be read that way. It wasn't written that way. It's not meant to be read that way. And the Bible is not a thesaurus. It's not an emotional grab bag. And it's not a doctrinal book on theology. It's none of those things. Those are all the ways that people try to look at it. It is none of those. And it's definitely not like a regular book. It's the furthest thing from a straight line and from being linear. It has all kinds of different twists and turns that it takes, and it seems to make no sense at all from one point to the next in the first look. It's all over the place. And the main reason for that is because we look at it like it's any other book. We approach it and read it like a book. The Bible is not a book. The Bible is a library. It is a collection of scrolls that has been put together and categorized. A normal book is written by one, maybe two authors, right? And it tells one clear linear story. The Bible, it's made up of 66 different scrolls, 66 different books compiled into one, written by 40 plus different authors, written in 3 different languages, on 3 different continents, not countries, continents, and over the span of 1,500 years. So that right there should tell you it's not a normal book. But that's still how we try to read it. At first glance, first read through the Bible, it does not seem to tell any kind of cohesive story, does it? And it's just this jumbled, chaotic mess that makes no sense. And that's a typical experience for really anybody approaching the Bible for the first time. But after we change our perspective just a little bit, and maybe a little bit of study, and mostly a new approach to how we approach and read the Bible, suddenly we realize that it's more intertwined and deeply rooted together in a fashion that we can't even imagine. Every single story in the Bible, every single phrase, and literally, and I mean literally, every single individual word has deep-rooted meaning and has connection to all the rest of Scripture. Every word. You could literally spend your entire lifetime finding all the hyperlinks in the Bible. I mean, there are people, literally, that's their job. There are Bible scholars out there that have dedicated their life, and all they do, all day long, every day, as their profession, is find different hyperlinks in the Bible. And it never ends. They can never find all of them. The smartest, most brilliant minds in biblical studies cannot make all the connections. If you had a room full of the world's greatest minds of biblical studies, the greatest Bible scholars in the world, and they did it 24/7 and didn't sleep, all for an entire lifetime, and then compiled all their findings together, they would not even come close. It never ends. That's the part that's not humanly possible. And it seems counterintuitive, but that's how the Bible was meant to be read. The Bible is what's called meditation literature. Meditation literature that you meditate on for a lifetime. If the Bible was a regular book, like we like to think of books, and we were going to the library to check out this regular book, in the library, how they have different headings at the top of the shelves, fiction, nonfiction, biography, so on. Definitely the title that would be, the heading that would be above the Bible section would say meditation literature. It's mentioned in Scripture many times, the most famous case probably being Psalm 1. It says, I find my delight in the law of the Lord, in the Torah, the books of Moses, and in that law doth I meditate day and night. Okay, so let's spend a couple minutes and talk about the gate. What is that about? What the heck does the gate mean? It doesn't sound like much, right? At least not to us, not in our culture, but once again, we have a shepherd metaphor. Guess what? It was being told to other shepherds who would have understood this, or to friends of shepherds or family members of shepherds, people who knew shepherds, and everyone would have understood the metaphor. Unfortunately, we don't have that in our culture. So we have a little bit of a pass, but then again, not really, because if you're really interested in what the Bible's saying, then you would dig deeper if you didn't understand something. But that's the reason that it's just not a boom, instant thing in our minds like it would have been for them. We just don't have that in our culture. And because of that, it tends to lose meaning or even have zero meaning whatsoever. But fortunately, we do have something that they didn't have. we do have podcasts. What Jesus means by the gate is when a shepherd is leading his flock out on a long journey, traveling far in the wilderness, at night, he would have to stop and rest. At some point, the shepherd would have to sleep, right? The way the shepherd would protect his flock as he slept was he would round up all the sheep into one area, and then he would use whatever that he could, whatever's at his disposal, rocks, down trees, the landscape itself, anything he could to create a makeshift sheep pen. And around the perimeter of this sheep pen, he would dig a deep trench, and he would line it with thorns and all types of dangerous things all the way around it, making it a way that no one and no thing could get to the sheep. Because there are a lot of predators out there that would love to attack and kill and eat those sheep. And there are also a lot of criminals, thieves, sheep thieves. This is not a joke. There was actually a huge underground ring of sheep thieves and a huge black market for these sheep thieves to sell the stolen sheep. And I am dead serious. It was big business. They would sneak up at night under the cover of darkness while the shepherd was sleeping, and they would run up and they would snatch up the sheep. They would run off and they'd go sell them in their sheep black market. I'm being serious. Or these people would have been people already in trouble, had committed some other type of sin, and so they were stealing sheep to go take it back to the temple to kill it and sacrifice it to atone for their sins. Or their family would be hungry and they would kill them and eat them. So there's a lot of reasons people would steal sheep. It was a big thing, big business. So to avoid that, the shepherd would create this makeshift sheep pen that was nearly impossible to get through and highly dangerous for whoever did try. There would be one single opening. The shepherd would make this opening the size of himself. Why would he do that? Because in this opening is where the shepherd would sleep. He would lie down in this opening, and he's the only way in or out. So there's one entrance. There's one exit. There's no other way in or out, making the shepherd himself the only possible way to get to the sheep. Do you see what's happening here? That's the shepherd making the statement saying, I love my sheep. I protect my sheep with my life. My sheep are my life. If you want to get to my sheep, you got to get through me. Man, is your mind blown yet? It's insane, right? But that's why Jesus called himself a gate. With one word, with one single, one syllable word, Jesus was saying all of that. And it was well understood. It's not that way for us. Not today. Because of the cross-cultural, cross-generational nature of the Bible. But also, even more than that, it's in addition to us not knowing our Bible as we should. If there weren't people doing things like this, we would have missed all that. What a tragedy. That's terrible. Terrible for us to miss out on something so extraordinary. And it's all just so much more than we ever cared to realize. Okay, well, that's why Jesus called himself the gate. Last but not least, I left you with a real cliffhanger, and I'm sure this whole time you've still been tightly holding onto your seats in great suspense and anticipation. In a prophecy written by Isaiah, I told you to keep in your mind the last words spoken by Yahweh in chapter 45, verse 3. Those words are, Isaiah 45:3, that you may know that it is I, Yahweh, the God of Israel, who call you by your name. We will know it is him being Yahweh, God. How will we know it's God? Because he will call you by your name. He calls us by name. Now let's fast forward 800 years when some random guy named John jotted down a quote from this no-name, nobody, insane guy from the ghetto. How does that quote read? Verse 3, the sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. He calls them by name. Wow. How do they know it's him? How do they know it's his voice? Because he called them by name. Jesus said it. Now, what did we just read? Who else just said that 800 years earlier? Oh yeah, God. What statement is Jesus making by saying those very specific words? You can answer that one yourself. How cool is that? The Bible is just so rad, man. It's so strange and crazy and just rad. I love it. Well, friends, thank you for sticking around. I hope going through all this has been helpful for you. I know it was for me. I also know At first glance, a lot of times these subjects and things that we talk about on here, they may seem familiar. You may be like, yeah, I heard my preacher preach about this before, or I just read this passage a couple weeks ago. I don't think I need to listen to a podcast about it. Or it could be something like I'm going into great detail about something that seems trivial and unimportant. Or it could be several other reasons. Something that can make you say, Paul's going on and on about sheep and gates and sheep pens. Why are we listening to this again? And that is a completely reasonable reaction. But I'll tell you this, you will never hear me just talking, just talk, going on and on about something, but saying nothing. I can't stand other people who do that, so I would not expect you to. But be assured that I would never do that to you. I value you and your time as much as anything. I really do. Everything I talk about is well planned out and very intentional. And if there comes a time when something is in question, and I'm positive it will, just hold tight. I promise you the point to it all is coming, and it's going to be vitally important and likely something or in a way that you've never thought of before. I'm truly glad that you've made the decision to learn the Bible. I really am. Excellent choice. Well, that'll do it for now. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Before you close this page out, give us a click. Smash on that like button before you go. While you're at it, click that little subscription button, or at the bottom right of your screen, there's a What the Hell logo. Just click that. It'll get you subscribed to the channel instantly. And by doing it, you'll be putting What the Hell in front of a larger audience. Thank you for doing so. Thank you for all your support. You are rad. The Bible is rad. I'm Paul Harrell, and this is What the Hell Podcast.